They called her just a base medic and laughed when she asked about the A-10 Thunderbolt's GAU-8 cannon, until Taliban forces ambushed a medical convoy, and everyone discovered the nurse was actually a former Warthog pilot who had more close air support missions than their entire attack squadron combined. Watch till the end, because what this woman did next made the Army rewrite their rules about who can provide close air support. At 33 years old, with blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun, and the calm, professional demeanor of someone who'd spent years making life-and-death medical decisions under pressure, Lisa moved through the base hospital with practiced efficiency. Her medical corps insignia identified her as a flight surgeon responsible for pilot health and aviation medicine, and she carried herself with the deliberately clinical manner of someone focused entirely on saving lives rather than taking them. What none of the cocky A-10 pilots knew was that Lisa's expertise with combat medicine came from years of flying the most dangerous close air support missions in military aviation history. What they also didn't know was that Major Lisa Hawg Harrison had more than 380 hours in A-10 Thunderbolt coups, earned during some of the most intense ground attack missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. Her medical assignment wasn't a career change. It was the perfect cover for investigating a series of friendly fire incidents that had killed 7 American soldiers over the past 6 months, incidents that appeared too precise and coordinated to be accidental targeting errors. "Hey, Doc," called out Captain Jake Mitchell, a brash 27-year-old pilot from Georgia who'd graduated from pilot training with high marks in weapons delivery and an even higher opinion of his tactical ability. "Make sure you keep those wounded soldiers patched up so we can send them back out there. The Warthog's doing all the real work out here." His A-10C sat on the flight line like a mechanical beast, its titanium bathtub cockpit and massive GAU-8 Avenger cannon representing 4,200 rounds per minute of tank-killing firepower. Mitchell had 156 hours in the Thunderbolt and considered himself one of Bagram's most effective close air support pilots. Lisa nodded politely without engaging in conversation and continued her medical rounds, methodically checking on wounded soldiers and reviewing treatment protocols that would get them back to fighting condition as quickly as possible. She'd heard variations of this patronizing dismissal countless times over the past 5 months since arriving at Bagram. To Mitchell and the other pilots, she was functionally invisible, someone who fixed broken bodies while they broke enemy forces with precision weapons delivery. What they didn't know was that Captain Lisa Hawg Harrison had been one of the most lethal close air support pilots in the Air Force before a classified incident had forced her to assume a new identity and transfer to medical duty. Her previous assignment had been with the 355th Wing's Premier Attack Squadron, where she'd flown missions that had saved hundreds of American ground troops while eliminating some of the most dangerous Taliban commanders in Afghanistan. "Harrison, I need those medical clearances for the wounded evacuation flight completed by 1200 hours. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Webb called from the hospital administration office. At 45, Webb supervised medical operations with the organizational efficiency that kept combat soldiers alive and mission-ready in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. We've got 12 soldiers scheduled for medical transport to Landstuhl, and they all need proper documentation for international medical evacuation." Lisa quietly acknowledged the order and continued her duties, strategically positioning herself where she could monitor flight operations and observe pilot briefings without attracting attention. Her medical assignment provided perfect access to casualty reports, mission debriefs, and pilot medical evaluations, exactly the kind of comprehensive information that someone coordinating friendly fire incidents would need to target specific ground units and create maximum casualties. The morning flight schedule called for close air support operations in the Kunar province, a mountainous region where Taliban forces had been increasingly effective at ambushing American patrols and Afghan National Army units. 3 A-10s would provide on-call fire support for ground operations, ready to deliver precision strikes against enemy positions while avoiding civilian casualties and friendly forces. It was exactly the kind of complex, high-stakes mission Lisa had flown dozens of times during her combat career, when she'd been responsible for developing many of the tactics now used by A-10 pilots throughout Afghanistan. Captain Mitchell reviewed his mission briefing with the swagger of someone who'd never had to make split-second decisions about life and death while flying at 300 feet above hostile territory. This should be routine, he told his flight lead, Major Tom Rodriguez, an experienced pilot who'd flown A-10s in Iraq before deploying to Afghanistan. Taliban fighters always use the same tactics. We identify their positions, deliver ordnance, and move on to the next target. Lisa paused in her medical paperwork to listen more carefully. Mitchell was making the dangerous error of tactical overconfidence, assuming that enemy forces would continue using predictable methods rather than adapting to American air power capabilities. She'd seen pilots with identical attitudes make fatal errors when faced with adaptive enemy tactics or complex ground situations. Close air support is never routine, Major Rodriguez replied thoughtfully. Ground situations change rapidly, friendly forces move unexpectedly, and target identification can be extremely challenging in mountainous terrain. One wrong decision can kill American soldiers instead of saving them. Rodriguez was absolutely correct, Lisa thought, while continuing her methodical review of medical evacuation procedures. A-10 close air support was genuinely the most effective ground attack capability in the American arsenal, but it required precise coordination with ground forces, intimate knowledge of battlefield dynamics, and constant awareness of friendly force locations. Most pilots learned these skills through simulation and controlled training exercises. Lisa had learned them in actual combat, where targeting errors meant dead American soldiers. As the three A-10s prepared for launch, Lisa continued her medical duties, positioning herself in the base operations center where she could monitor radio communications and observe mission coordination procedures. Her cover assignment gave her access to casualty reports, friendly force locations, and target coordination data. Exactly the kind of detailed intelligence that someone systematically causing friendly fire incidents would need to maximize American casualties. The three Thunderbolt descendants launched precisely at 0800 hours. Their twin TF-34 engines producing 9,065 pounds of thrust each as they headed toward the mountainous terrain where American ground forces were conducting counterinsurgency operations. Lisa watched from the medical center, her experienced eye automatically noting the subtle differences in each aircraft's weapon, loadout, and mission configuration. Years of close air support experience had taught her to identify potential tactical vulnerabilities that other observers might miss completely. The Fairchild Republic, A-10 Thunderbolt II, represented the most effective close air support aircraft ever built. With a maximum speed of 439 miles per hour, a service ceiling of 45,000 feet, and the ability to carry 16,000 pounds of ordnance, it was designed specifically to support ground troops in hostile environments. Its legendary GAU-8 Avenger cannon could fire 30mm depleted uranium rounds at 4,200 rounds per minute, capable of destroying tanks, bunkers, and personnel with devastating effectiveness. 43 minutes into the mission, the first indication of serious problems began to emerge through radio communications that Lisa was monitoring from her medical station. Hawg 2-1. We're receiving conflicting grid coordinates from ground control. Captain Mitchell's voice carried tension, despite his usual confidence. Ground forces are reporting enemy positions that don't match our target package, and I'm seeing movement that could be friendly forces in the target area. Lisa's blood ran cold as she recognized the tactical situation. She'd encountered this exact scenario before, during a mission in Helmand Province, when deliberately falsified coordinates had nearly caused her to deliver ordnance on American Special Forces instead of Taliban fighters. The conflicting information indicated someone was providing incorrect targeting data to create a friendly fire incident. Hawg 2-1. Proceed with engagement according to your original briefing, Major Rodriguez ordered from the lead aircraft. Ground control coordinates sometimes get confused during active operations. Trust your mission planning and deliver ordnance on schedule. But Lisa knew with absolute certainty that Rodriguez was wrong. The pattern of conflicting coordinates and suspicious ground movement indicated a deliberate attempt to manipulate A-10 pilots into targeting American forces instead of enemy positions. If the attack proceeded as planned, at least 12 American soldiers would be killed by their own air support. Lisa stepped closer to the radio equipment in the operations center, her carefully maintained medical officer persona beginning to crack as her close air support pilot instincts took complete control. She'd faced this identical targeting dilemma 2 years ago during a classified mission and had barely avoided a catastrophic friendly fire incident through advanced target verification techniques that weren't included in standard pilot training. Hawg 2-1, Abort your current attack run immediately, she called into the radio, completely abandoning her cover. You're being fed false coordinates that will result in friendly fire casualties. Repeat, abort engagement and request verification of all target data. The operations center erupted in shocked confusion. Ground personnel and officers stared at Lisa in complete disbelief, unable to process the sight of a medical officer giving tactical instruction to close air support pilots flying combat missions. "Who the hell is this?" Captain Mitchell demanded over the radio, his voice thick with indignation and disbelief. "Since when does some flight surgeon think she knows how to coordinate close air support missions? Get her away from that radio immediately." But the voice of the ground controller cut through the confusion, tight with sudden genuine concern as the tactical situation continued to deteriorate. "Hawg Flight, ground control is reporting that our forward observers have lost contact with the ground forces that called in those coordinates. We may have compromised communications or enemy infiltration of our radio networks." Lisa grabbed the radio handset firmly, despite the shocked protests and attempted interventions of the operations center staff. "All Hawg aircraft, implement target verification protocol Charlie 7 immediately. The coordinates you've been given will put ordnance on American positions. Ground forces are being manipulated by enemy infiltrators using captured radio equipment. Security, get that medical officer away from flight operations immediately," Colonel Martinez barked from the command center, his voice carrying the authority of someone responsible for combat mission coordination. But before security personnel could respond, Major Rodriguez's voice confirmed Lisa's worst fears and validated her tactical assessment. "Operations, ground control is reporting that GPS coordinates provided for our target areas place ordnance directly on top of known American patrol routes. We need immediate verification before any weapons delivery." The operations center fell into stunned silence, except for the urgent radio transmissions from 3 A-10 pilots, who suddenly realized they'd been set up to commit the worst possible error in close air support operations. At 8,000 feet above the Afghan mountains, they were being directed to kill American soldiers instead of Taliban fighters. Lisa pushed past the security personnel who were moving to restrain her and took complete control of flight operations. Her quiet, carefully maintained medical officer demeanor vanished entirely, replaced by the calm, absolute authority of someone who'd faced this exact tactical situation multiple times before. "All Hawg aircraft, this is Hawg," she said, using her old combat call sign for the first time in 3 years. "I've been through this targeting deception before, and I'm going to talk you through proper verification procedures. Listen to my voice carefully and execute my instructions precisely." On the other end of the radio transmission, Major Rodriguez's extensive training immediately kicked in, despite the unprecedented circumstances. The call sign, Hawg, was absolutely legendary among A-10 pilots, a close air support ace who'd achieved a perfect friendly fire prevention record during hundreds of combat missions before mysteriously disappearing from active flying status. "Hawg, is that really you?" Rodriguez's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and sudden confidence. "I thought Hawg was transferred to classified assignments after preventing a major friendly fire incident in Helmand province. Focus completely on target verification," Lisa replied with the steady confidence of someone who'd never made a targeting error in her entire combat career. "Taliban forces have infiltrated our communications network and are providing false coordinates to cause maximum American casualties. Implement visual target confirmation using thermal imaging and coordinate with ground forces using authentication codes Delta 77. In the operations center, Colonel Martinez stared at Lisa with dawning recognition and growing amazement. The call sign, Hawg, belonged to Major Lisa Harrison, the most accomplished A-10 pilot in recent Air Force history, who disappeared from active duty after achieving a perfect record of close air support missions without a single friendly fire incident. "Harrison?" Martinez whispered in disbelief. "Lisa Harrison? But you were reported transferred to medical duties after your targeting expertise became classified information." Lisa ignored his recognition completely, her total attention focused on guiding 3 A-10 pilots through the most challenging target verification of their careers. "All Hawg aircraft, enemy forces are using this deception to eliminate American ground units while simultaneously discrediting our close air support capabilities. Do not deliver ordnance until you have visual confirmation of enemy forces and positive identification from ground controllers using proper authentication. Hawg, our thermal imaging is showing heat signatures that appear to be Taliban fighters, but they're in positions that match the coordinates we were given for American patrol routes. Captain Mitchell reported, his earlier arrogance replaced by professional concern. That's because Taliban forces have positioned themselves to use American soldiers as human shields, Lisa replied, her tactical knowledge coming from years of enemy pattern recognition. They're hoping you'll either kill Americans accidentally or refuse to engage, allowing them to escape. Adjust your attack angle to eliminate enemy positions while avoiding any risk to friendly forces. For the next 16 minutes, Lisa directed the most precise close air support mission in recent military history. Using tactical knowledge gained from years of combat operations, she guided 3 A-10 pilots through target verification and weapons delivery procedures that eliminated Taliban fighters while protecting American ground forces from any possibility of friendly fire. The mission required perfect coordination between all 3 Thunderbolt pilots, using advanced targeting systems and visual confirmation to identify and eliminate enemy positions that had been deliberately positioned to create maximum confusion and potential for friendly casualties. Lisa's tactical guidance was so precise and effective that it seemed almost supernatural to the officers monitoring the engagement. When the final Taliban position was destroyed and American ground forces were secure, the operations center erupted in spontaneous cheers and applause. But Lisa simply set down the radio handset and walked calmly toward the medical center exit, her cover thoroughly blown and her investigation completely compromised. Colonel Martinez caught up with her near the hospital entrance, his expression mixing respect, amazement, and demand for answers. Harrison, we need to talk immediately. Lisa stopped walking but didn't turn around to face him. My name is Lisa Harrison. I'm a flight surgeon assigned to medical operations. Cut the cover story, Martinez said firmly. I know exactly who you are. Major Lisa Harrison, call sign Hawg, the most accomplished A-10 pilot in Air Force history with a perfect friendly fire prevention record. You were supposed to be assigned a classified program. Finally, Lisa turned to face Colonel Martinez directly. For the first time since arriving at Bagram Air Base, she stood with the full bearing and unmistakable presence of the elite close air support pilot she actually was. Being officially transferred to medical duties has significant operational advantages, Colonel. It allows you to investigate security breaches and enemy infiltration without being detected or compromised. Martinez's expression shifted from confusion to rapid understanding. You're here on a counterintelligence mission. The friendly fire incidents that have killed 7 American soldiers over the past 6 months weren't accidental targeting errors, Lisa explained with professional precision. Someone with access to our communications networks and ground force locations has been providing Taliban forces with American radio frequencies and authentication codes, allowing them to coordinate false targeting information. And you've been working undercover as medical personnel to identify the source of the security breach. Lisa nodded confirmation. Medical officers have access to casualty reports, mission debriefs, and communication protocols for all ground operations. Over the past 5 months, I have systematically identified the infiltration methods and gathered sufficient evidence to prosecute the individual responsible. That evening, Lisa's investigation led to the arrest of a communication specialist who'd been selling American radio frequencies and authentication codes to Taliban intelligence operatives. The security breach that had enabled multiple friendly fire incidents and endangered countless American soldiers was finally eliminated. The next morning, Lisa found herself standing in Colonel Martinez's office, wearing her proper Air Force uniform for the first time in 5 months, her pilot wings and major's insignia restored and visible, her true identity finally revealed. The Pentagon wants you back in active A-10 operations immediately, Martinez said, sliding flight orders across his desk. Your counterintelligence mission is complete, and we need our best close air support pilots protecting American ground forces. Lisa looked out the window at the A-10 Thunderbolts on the flight line, their distinctive twin engines and straight wings representing the most effective ground support aircraft ever built. What about Captain Mitchell and Major Rodriguez? They both specifically requested to thank you personally. Rodriguez says your tactical guidance during the target verification was the most impressive display of close air support expertise he's ever witnessed. They handled the mission perfectly once they had accurate information, Lisa replied simply. That's what good pilots do when properly supported. Later that day, when Major Rodriguez approached Lisa on the flight line, she was no longer wearing medical corps insignia. She stood in her proper flight suit, bearing the wings and insignia of one of the Air Force's most elite A-10 pilots, her true identity finally revealed. Major Harrison, Rodriguez said, extending his hand with genuine respect. I don't know how to properly thank you for the tactical guidance that prevented what could have been the worst friendly fire incident in recent military history. By being the kind of pilot who would provide the same level of expertise to others when American lives are at stake, Lisa replied, shaking his hand firmly, and by remembering that the person treating your wounded soldiers might know more about close air support than you do. Over the following weeks, the story of the flight surgeon who prevented a major friendly fire incident became legendary throughout the A-10 community. But the details remained highly classified, known only to those with the highest security clearances and a need to know about America's most sensitive counterintelligence operations. Captain Mitchell, who dismissively called Lisa Doc and questioned her tactical knowledge, quietly requested additional training on target verification and communication security. He couldn't face the daily reminder that someone whose expertise so completely surpassed his own had been dismissed as a mere medical officer and whose tactical brilliance had just saved multiple American lives. Major Lisa Harrison returned to active flying status as one of the Air Force's most classified close air support pilots, but her undercover investigation had taught her something valuable about perception, respect, and the nature of true expertise. Sometimes the most important missions are conducted by people others choose not to see, and real competence doesn't require recognition to protect American soldiers and save lives. The A-10 Thunderbolt program continued with enhanced security procedures, protected by improved communication protocols, and guided by pilots who finally understood that close air support requires more than just weapons delivery. It requires respect for the people who understand those missions better than anyone else.